G'day guys, Jason and Nick from the Udder Farm. We're actually on the trial property this afternoon. What we'll be doing today is the girls have finished their first winter pass through the trial property, our new heifers. So we're going to be loading them on the car and taking them out to the Udder Farm into that paddock division video I done a few weeks ago. So as you can see, it's wet weather, so it won't take too long. We'll actually just load them in now and we'll get them out there. Nah. You have to come out here with that lead up.
Come on, let's go find Ruby Roo.
So a few weeks back I done that petition video. It runs from that corner of the post you can see in the video there right down beside me to that gum tree in the distance across the dam. The idea of that petition is I wanted to put my new 4 heifers on this side of the poly braid of the electric fence and all my other stock, including the bull, on the other side. See, the heifers I've got are only yearlings, so they're not at an age where they can go to a bull. So the idea was to set that up and separate the two. So I wanted at least a week or two so my cattle could get used to the wire being there. My cattle are hot wire broken, but the issue is we come out to bring those heifers out and the line I had set up was way down the paddock. When we walked all the step-ins, you can see this step in here. I don't know if you can see from there, but it's on a 45-degree angle. So that used to go straight up, and this is on a 45-degree angle, so it's been bent over, and all of them, predominantly 80% of those were like that. Then down at the dam, we had a pigtail right into the clay mud, and that gets buried in 8 inches. And then it's got another peg here, which alleviates it getting pushed over. So they make good corners. That was in the dam. It took us 3 days to find that and fish that out. Then I had the alligator clip that joins on to the hot wire. That clip was smashed, so I've had to get a new clip because that was smashed off. The earth was all right. As for the poly braid itself, it was hooked to the barbed wire fence over there, and for all those who've used poly braid before, they'd red hooks. It takes a bit to pull them off the fence, but that's been pulled off the fence and it's gone 90 degrees, so it's been pulled off there, and we picked up the end of the handle was exactly 90 degrees and we picked it up there. So it's traveled 90 degrees and some 200 meters in that direction. So obviously it's wrapped around their ankles, their legs, and they've kept getting zapped until to the point that that hook has broken off the charger, and even they've run more because they've carted it from there to there. So they've definitely run with it wrapped around the legs, and then they've obviously come off at that point. We got 3 theories how it could have happened. Number one is, I know we've got issues at the moment with stray dogs or wild dogs in the neighbourhood. A few people have been losing sheep through dogs. It may have been a dog that's come through, spooked them at night time, and the herd have gone through at a great knots through that poly braid, because like I said, it was way down the paddock, 90 degrees to where it was erected. So obviously they've hit it, it's got tangled, and they've carted it 200 metres and 90 degrees down the paddock, so they've hit it at force. Or the second theory we got is the bull hasn't been hot wire trained, but he's been out here, he was here for the whole 2 weeks. So and the fence was still erect. So he was with the herd, so that is another theory. We put it up so he could get used to it. So potentially he may have gone through it by accident, but we're sort of not thinking, because 2 weeks, what we think may have happened is my folks had 2 of their head getting serviced off the property, and they brought them back, and they've never been hot wire trained. And I know one of them's real spooky, so at any drop of a hat or any slight noise or any rustling, one of them particularly just bolts off in the paddock and the other one sort of follows. So potentially it may have been a combination of the dog spooking them and the whole herd, or it could have been just those two, that one of those cows getting spooked and running through it. So we probably should have introduced them slowly, the 2 of Dad's or my parents' cattle, into the hot wire system back in town. That way they get used to it in a confined space, in familiar surroundings where we haven't got an issue with dogs, before we introduce them out here to a cell grazing system. The plan was to have those heifers, like I mentioned, in that paddock, and that would have been their winter pasture. And then I could have taken them out the back. We've got some area there from that virgin video. We're going to regraze them through there down into the creek with a poly braid, because they've been hot wire trained. But since that has happened, we've now had to put them in the paddock behind me. So that's where I pulled the cattle out. I done that winter grazing video on, so that was supposed to have an arrest. But now obviously I've had to separate them, and it's not optimal, but they're in there now. So we've obviously got to start bale feeding these, which we did yesterday. We rolled out some hay because there's not much forage in there over winter. And what we have got, we've had a killing frost so far and it's starting to die off. So it's not optimal, but that happens in winter. So we're gonna have to bale feed, and we'll have to start bale feeding our main herd within the coming weeks, because this grass is pretty well depleted now. So we'll roll out hay, like I said, we'll roll it on the ground, and that way we're building back armour to hopefully protect ourselves in the future and hold moisture a lot longer, like we did on the trial property. These are the 4 heifers we dropped off in the trailer. So when I say avoided disaster, had the bull have got into these heifers, because they're only, like I said, they're yearlings, they wouldn't have had the frame size to cart right up to pregnancy. Or if they did, would end up pulling calves because they weren't big enough, which then jeopardised not only the calf, but the livelihood of the mother. So we don't generally put our heifers to bulls until they're around that 80 months of age. So I can't really complain. It cost me like $10 for a new alligator clip, where it could have cost me potentially $4,000 had I have lost 4 heifers during pregnancy because they were too young to go to the bull. So that's why I set it up first, to make sure we had no issues. So I'm glad it happened when it did, and when we weren't here, because they're not, potentially they could have been serviced by the bull and not survived. That's why we say always train your livestock to a hot wire system first before you start incorporating in the bigger areas of paddock, restricting their movements to, like I said, that would have been hit at pretty full flight, whoever went through that, because it ended up, like I said, 90 degrees and 200 metres down. Had you restricted the movement and spent the time training in a barbed wire system, they couldn't have got the run up to hit that at the greater knots in which they did. So it definitely pays to train your livestock like we do on an aluminium can on your poly braid, so they know it's there. It may have even happened at night time, we may not even known. So that's another theory. Had it happened at night and they weren't familiar and got spooked, they definitely wouldn't have seen the white post. It just would have been, there's a noise in the grass, rustle, scrun right through it. And that could have been even our cows doing that had they been spooked, so we won't know. But it definitely pays to train initiation period before you introduce them to a hot wire system. So that's a lesson learnt on our behalf, but definitely a cheap lesson. Like I said, it could have been worse. So have a good morning, have a terrific afternoon, and an awesome evening, guys, and we'll catch you later.